I want to talk about something my husband said during my pregnancy that made me think, this guy is trouble. A few years ago, I met the man who would become my husband, Aaron, through work. It all started with a coworker. After a company party, he confessed his feelings, and we began dating. Our relationship was well known and approved by our colleagues. We had joined the company around the same time, and our conversations gradually increased. There was a time when people around us were saying, "You guys should just date." Being told that made me more conscious of him. Our relationship went smoothly, and we eventually got married. 2 years later, I was pregnant. When I told Aaron about the pregnancy, he was overjoyed and, despite it being night, he rushed out to buy a cake. I thought he should calm down a bit, but I was really happy with his reaction. I had a bit of morning sickness, but it wasn't too bad, and I continued working at the office. Since everyone knew we were married, they were very supportive. When my belly started to show, I went on maternity leave. Normally, you start about 6 weeks before your due date, right? I took it a bit early. I figured I wouldn't be back for a year, and they said I could use my paid leave. Staying at home, the housework became somewhat difficult. Maybe because my belly was sticking out in front, it was hard on my back. But Aaron was quite supportive and looked for ways to make things easier for me. He said, "I should make things comfortable for you even when you're alone." He really focused on making sure I could move around easily. One night, as I passed behind Aaron after he got out of the bath, I noticed his WhatsApp chat was open. It was purely by chance that I saw his phone. There was a chat filled with hearts. But just seeing it didn't prove anything. It wasn't enough to be conclusive evidence of cheating. Moreover, from the middle of the pregnancy, Aaron started coming home late. We worked in different departments, so we went home separately and I didn't know the real situation. After seeing that chat, I couldn't help but feel anxious, and Aaron continued to come home late the next day. Unlike the previous late nights, I was feeling uneasy, so I decided to call Caleb, who works in the same department as Aaron. "Hello, sorry to bother you. Is Aaron working overtime again today?" "No, he left on time." "Is something wrong? Are you okay?" "The baby is fine. I just happened to make plans to go out today." "Oh, I see. But what do you mean, also today?" "For the past few months, there haven't been many days with overtime, I think." This made my blood run cold. All those nights I thought he was working late, he had been meeting his mistress. What was the joy of buying that cake on the day I announced my pregnancy? All the things he had done for me, were they really for me? Caleb seemed to sense something was off over the phone and tried to be considerate. Soon after, Aaron came home, so I decided to confront him. I had no physical evidence, only Caleb's testimony and the fact that I saw his chat. When I asked Caleb, he said, "You left on time. Where have you been?" He also said there hasn't been much overtime for months. Was all that a lie? Also, I happened to see your messages the other day. Normally, you'd expect someone to panic or lash out in response, right? But Aaron was different. Yeah. Because, I've been cheating." "What?" "I could have said it normally, but you'd hate it, right? You're confronting me about it now, aren't you?" "I went out drinking again today. I'm tired, I'm going to take a bath." Being told so bluntly, now that I think about it, was oddly refreshing. But at that moment, all I could see was darkness. It wasn't that he thought cheating was wrong, he talked about it as if it was nothing once caught. But during that time, we were deciding on our baby's name, buying clothes once we knew its gender, he seemed to enjoy it more than I did. Was that all a lie? After he bathed, Aaron just went to sleep as usual. The next day, he said to me as usual, "Good morning, I'm off to work. Sleep in." I couldn't figure out what Aaron was thinking. Nothing particular had happened until then. Maybe there are people like that? Being told as if it were nothing, I started wondering if I was the strange one. But aside from the cheating, he was kind. By then, I was 35 weeks pregnant. Thinking about divorce now, with all the paperwork and being in a small town, if it became known, how uncomfortable would that be? As for me, I couldn't forgive the cheating. So, I thought, maybe after the baby is born. But now, I guess that's probably too difficult. Taking care of a baby, you get so sleep deprived, you can't make sound judgments. Afterwards, I continued to feel uneasy. Aaron would talk to me as if nothing was wrong, but inside, I didn't know how to respond. Because he would casually start talking about his affair with a married woman. I thought getting angry was useless. To Aaron, cheating seemed normal, something he could just mention casually. Aaron would say, "I'm going to hang out with Bella." And just leave. But I couldn't reconcile my feelings. It was definitely causing me stress. When I reached 36 weeks, my water broke. It was the first day of a long weekend, and I certainly hadn't expected it today. All my checkups had been fine, I thought everything was okay. In pain and unable to reach the toilet, I collapsed on the spot. Naturally, everything around was soaked. The pain was so intense, I didn't have time to go to the bathroom. Unable to speak, I tried to ask Aaron for help. Ugh, what's this? Gross, that's so disgusting. Make sure you clean it up. I don't want to touch it. I've got a trip planned with Bella today. I didn't expect this to happen today. I've already booked the train, I'm off. If it looks impossible, call an ambulance yourself. And with that, Aaron left for his trip. The sound of the door I heard then is something I'll never forget. As the pain lessened, I desperately reached for my phone. I just wanted to call anyone, and the second number on my call history was my mother-in-law. I get along really well with her. It's incredible that she's Aaron's mother. She usually works part-time, so it was a complete shot in the dark. But luckily, she answered the phone that morning. "Hello, what's the matter?" "I'm sorry to bother you, but my water broke, and Aaron has gone on a trip." "What?" My mother-in-law's house is quite close to mine, and she came over right away. I thought maybe I should have called, but I was told to avoid using an ambulance for childbirth if possible. My MIL laid down plastic and towels in the back seat and let me lie there. The birth went smoothly, although the baby was a bit small, he was born healthy. But I was bleeding badly. There was a time I had to stay still in the delivery room. Since it was okay, I had my MIL come in. I just felt so vulnerable and wanted someone with me. The nurse was taking care of the baby, and I was lying alone on the delivery room bed. The ceiling was so impersonal, just like you'd expect in a hospital. Today, I told my MIL everything about Aaron, without holding anything back. I think anyone would find it impossible to be with a husband who leaves his water-broken wife to go on a trip. This is no time to think about when to get divorced. It could be right now. But talking about not seeing my beloved MIL anymore made me cry. When I told her everything, my MIL said, "You should have told me sooner." But her face was clearly angry. While I was in the delivery room, it seems my MIL contacted my parents. She explained the situation to my parents, who arrived a little later and apologized. Moved from the delivery room to a private room, I thought I should contact Aaron. He's the father, after all, should I let him know? But my MIL stopped me. "Sweetie, do you really want to contact Aaron after what he's done? Is there any need to tell a husband who's gone off with his mistress that the baby is born?" I thought to myself, he is her son, right? But indeed, she was right. "No." I immediately answered. Aaron was just looking forward to the birth in a normal way. But that was it. He hadn't thought about the process or any complications, I guess. If I had contacted him then, I might have just been setting myself up. My MIL knew this could happen, and she probably understood that I didn't want to contact him at all, that I just wanted to disappear. My mother and MIL told me to just rest, and then they left. At that time, it seemed my MIL had decided to give up on Aaron. My FIL agreed. I asked my parents to collect my personal belongings and the baby's things from our home. I wondered what would happen next, but I had already decided on divorce. I was going to protect my child, no matter what. There was no time to ponder. Since the birth, saying I could hardly sleep was an understatement. Just rest, they said, but then the nurse would come relentlessly for feeding time. I was thinking, am I supposed to do this alone? But I also didn't want to do it with Aaron. It was on the third day, after breastfeeding, when I returned to my room. There were notifications on my phone from Aaron. Seems he had returned from his trip. There were calls and messages, but I ignored them. The messages were saying things like, "Why is there only my stuff?" and "Is the baby born? Contact me." I wondered which nerve he had to say that. He had left his near-death wife and child to fend for themselves. The content of the messages was just frantic. But by noon that day, he seemed to have come to the hospital. I had asked for no visitors. It seems there are quite a few out there. People who, after a fight with their husbands, refuse to see them. A father and still, denying visitation? Isn't that harsh? Did I do something? Can't see my own child? I was looking forward to it. I want to see Kate too. Why can't I see them? Please, take it back. I couldn't believe it. He really doesn't understand what he's done. No way visitation denial would just be withdrawn. I thought about blocking him, but then, the contact just stopped. Probably ran off to his mistress or something. I just left it at that. After that, there was a bathing class. I attended that too. Like in the prenatal classes, everyone's really anxious. It's kind of a refresher where the nurse goes over everything. Aaron said he would handle it, so I only half listened in class. But then, things got real, and I paid full attention. It was a real lifesaver. In the evening, my mother-in-law came to visit. She was all smiles, having had a good look at the baby this time. That's when I found out why Aaron's contact had stopped. On the day I gave birth, my MIL was on her way back from the hospital when she contacted someone. It was Bella's husband. First off, where I live is pretty rural. Naturally, there aren't many places to work. It's normal to have a relative or a friend of a friend's husband working at your employment site. Cheating in such a small community is surprising, though. My MIL usually gets a lot of people coming to her for advice. Bella's husband was one of those people. He's an employee at the place where my MIL works. His concern was that things weren't going well with his wife, and something seemed off. Turned out she was cheating. He had it investigated by a detective agency but didn't know what to do next. He loved his wife but wondered if divorce was the only option. At that time, he had the detective agency's documents with him. Photos, apparently visible to my MIL, of his wife entering a hotel hand in hand with Aaron. Even my MIL was at a loss whether to speak up clearly or not. She just muddied the waters, giving non-committal advice. Amidst this, I contacted her that my water broke. Hearing about what Aaron had done, my MIL reached her limit. She called everyone related to the household to hear the story. It was indeed a scene from a soap opera. After returning from a trip, Bella was dragged to the meeting by her husband. And there, already arrived, was Aaron, who she had just been with. It must have seemed like a disaster, but it was too late. The husband spread the detective's documents across the family's table and demanded a divorce. What? Why? No! I don't want to split up. All this evidence and you still don't want a divorce? I don't get it. I've always loved you, Bella. Contacting the detective agency and uncovering the truth was painful. But you weren't the same, were you? Draining each other mentally, there's no need for us to stay together. What? But isn't cheating normal? Doesn't everyone do it? What? I was planning to leave once the baby was born anyway. Isn't it obvious? You can't cheat when there's a child, but before that, it seemed okay. I was too scared to even touch my wife, so why am I being condemned? I understand your perspective now. But you won't be seeing that child anymore. Why? What do you mean by that? After this is over, I want you out of here. Don't ever come back. I'm severing ties with you as a parent. Of course, that includes your father too. What? Just because I cheated, why does it have to go this far? I don't understand what you mean. What you don't understand is your own mind. Leaving your wife who's just had her water break and collapsing to go on a trip with your mistress, who would find that acceptable? The water breaking is dirty? That's for protecting the child you wanted to meet. Someone who can say such things so easily has a dirty mind. I don't need a man like that. Even Kate has decided on divorce. That's why you've been denied visitation. So, what should I do? What about the baby? Talking about it now is bizarre enough, but as it turns out, Bella was pregnant. The room froze, and everyone was speechless as, does this mean the child will be fatherless? That's too sad. It's terrible for you to leave once the child is born, especially after saying how much you loved. What do you want to do? You said earlier you didn't want to break up with me, right? But based on that, it seems like you want to continue this situation. But I can't stand this anymore. Divorce is the only option. But the child is... No. Whose child is it anyway? Even if, giving you the benefit of the doubt, it's mine, I can't be with you anymore. This conversation has totally turned me off. I don't need this anymore. Amiel, I'm sorry for causing such a scene. I will proceed with the divorce. Don't decide all by yourself. How long are you going to play the tragic heroine? I think she had never seen her husband's cold gaze before. She stopped crying out when he looked at her with such disdain. Well, it's going to be tough to fetch it now, so here you go. What the Amiel brought out was the divorce papers. I had asked her to get them for me. Thinking of any mistakes, she had got several copies. You have to sign it too. She laid out 2 sets, one for the Bella couple and one in front of Aaron. It finally dawned on Aaron that what he was saying was far from common sense. Together with Bella, their faces turned ashen as the Amiel said, "You two make a perfect pair." They seemed reluctant to sign the divorce papers, but they did after the Amiel said, "Whose fault is it that things have come to this? Who's responsible for hurting someone important?" But even though they signed, the section for me was left blank. Aaron, who wouldn't give up, called me. The Amiel was still in the hospital room, so she heard everything. I put it on speaker. Oops. Kate, I got overwhelmed and signed the papers, but you won't, right? I panicked and wanted to escape reality when the water broke. I apologize for that time, so please don't sign. Escaping reality by going on a trip? Isn't that your true feeling? But... You always say, the things you do when drunk reveal your true nature. I don't want to see your face anymore. I really don't want to hear your voice. And by the way, your mother is listening to this conversation. What? Why is she there? Oh, right. I've already signed the divorce papers. And stamped them too. Why do you even have the stamp? Right. You wouldn't know since you were away. When giving birth, you need a stamp for settling the hospital bills. The nurse told you, remember? Anyway, in this situation, I can't use it, so I'll leave it with your mother. After that, it was silent, and I hung up the phone. The divorce papers were left with the Amiel, and though it was a bit premature, I was able to leave the hospital without any issues. I was happy to be in good health, despite the circumstances. And then, on the day of discharge, my parents and in-laws came, and it was time to leave the maternity ward. The outside was so refreshing and clear. Surrounded by my parents, we were heading to the parking lot when I was approached by someone. Or rather, scolded. You're the reason we're getting divorced. This was suddenly thrown at me by Bella. Why do you look so happy? I have no parents, and I've been abandoned by my husband. Even without Aaron, you're still surrounded. Then, give me Aaron. Even if you say, please give it to me, I don't need it, and the day before yesterday, I filed for divorce. Does that mean Bella was dumped by Aaron too? I only understood vaguely, but it seemed to be something like that. But I thought I had met Bella somewhere before. I've always hated you. She really lashed out at me, but then Bella just left. If she's always hated me, we must have met somewhere before. When I thought about it, Bella was one of the new hires who joined the company with me. That year, there were quite a few new employees. But several people quit too. Bella was one of them. I never talked to her, but she seemed to have talked with Aaron. Caleb told me that as well. But Bella quit the company soon because it wasn't a good fit for her. So, I don't remember her. She quit, but maybe she always liked Aaron? This is just my imagination, but maybe she was going to confess, but by then Aaron was already married. She knew about me, but maybe there was something she just didn't like. It must have been a shock to her that he married me, maybe she got married to her husband on the rebound. But she couldn't forget about Aaron and somehow tried to get close to him again. I don't know how she did it. Aaron and I divorced later. I filed for alimony and child support, but then Aaron quit his job. Caleb spread the stories about the affair and the water breaking all over the office. I was the main instigator. What about the alimony? Caleb said, but I got that taken care of too. Even if he quits, he's still got to pay, and our company has a lot of women. Aaron was really hated after that. Our boss is a man, but there was no way he would understand. He felt so uncomfortable that he resigned voluntarily and didn't show up the next day. I also filed a claim against Bella. Her husband had filed for alimony for both of them. I was torn about going back to my parents. Parenting is hard, and I could use some help. Now that I'm a single mother, I have to earn money on my own. So I stayed at my parents' during maternity leave, but I was thinking about returning to my current job. There's no employment around my parents' house. But since they live far away, if I decide to live there, I would have to quit my current job. I thought about it over and was wondering if I really had no choice but to find a new job. Kate, you know. If it's okay with you, why don't you live with us? My mother-in-law proposed. You hate Aaron's family? My mother-in-law looked so forlorn and cute. I thought it was a good idea. Aaron, even when we talked through lawyers, said things I couldn't understand. At my in-laws, Aaron is disowned, and there are people there to protect me. In a way, it's the safest place. It would also make it easier to return to work, so I went for it. But only until the child turns 3, with that condition. It was my suggestion. I can't rely on them forever. My in-laws are nice people, and I still love them very much. But I want to maintain a good relationship with them. My parents were initially reluctant, but there's the reality of no work and no daycare, and if I quit my job, there's the risk of not finding another. Since Aaron had already voluntarily resigned, my parents bowed their heads to my mother-in-law. She was thrilled. After all, she could be with her grandchild. By the way, my father-in-law named the child. When I asked him, he blushed and said, "Are you sure you want me to do it?" His family owns a church, so I thought he might give a good name. And then, a little while after I started living at my in-laws, Aaron showed up. He couldn't find work after resigning on his own. Aaron went to my parents' house, but hearing that I was at my in-laws, he visited, trembling. He wanted to reduce the alimony, but my mother-in-law scolded him, and he left. But the alimony and child support were properly transferred. From what I've heard, he's been living by doing various jobs. He moved away because the town became too uncomfortable. Payments were also made by Bella. But I don't know what happened after the divorce. Bella's husband got promoted and moved from my mother-in-law's area to the headquarters. We don't see each other much anymore, but he always comes to greet us when he visits. And today, I left my in-laws' house. Moving with a child was hard, but my parents helped. When the child turned 1, I was able to put them in daycare, and when I returned to work, everyone said how hard it must have been. Indeed, it was. Just because 3 years have passed doesn't mean it gets easier. But there are people who support me and understand me. I'm done with marriage. Even my mother-in-law didn't know about Aaron's psychopathic tendencies. There was no way I could have known. But even now, I'm living happily. I'm looking forward to my new life and making many memories with my child.